Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Facebook Live. I haven't done this for so long. I'm out of practice. I used to do Facebook Lives as the recording for my podcast when I didn't have guests, and that was a long time. And now it's been a long time since I haven't had a guest. Thankfully, I've had a lot of amazing conversations, and this week I don't have one scheduled. So I thought I'd go live again as I have in the past. If you happen to be watching or notice that I'm live and want to pop in, I'd love you to participate in the conversation by adding any comments you have or questions you have. If you're watching later, that's great too. Please feel free to leave comments. I will just know that they're not ones that I can respond to while I'm recording this. So, man, I am a little rusty, but I think it's really important that we talk about some things, we being us here in this conversation, but also in your life as you go forward. Being a leader. I'm making a lot of assumptions that people understand what that means, being a leader. And the way that we've been describing it in the Enlightened Leadership Lab, which is a collaboration with my good friend and partner, Chris Angel, on Mondays, is just somebody who's willing to go first. It doesn't mean you have a title, tenure, position. It doesn't matter any of that. It means that you have an idea, you have a commitment, a passion about something, and you're willing to go first in leading that charge. And that's really what leadership means to me these days. It's just, I've been trying so hard for so long to do what others want me to do. And it turns out that it doesn't always work for me to look for other people to follow. Because they might not know where I want to go, and probably because I haven't known where I want to go. And so, as a leader, as someone who has leadership characteristics from the time I was born, probably, and then tried to suppress them for so long, I just can't do that anymore. I have to go first. And the place I'm willing to go first is in having conversations that matter with people who matter. And that's the subtitle for the podcast, Circle Up and Get Real, which this will be, I think it's episode 197. I'm getting right up to 200 episodes. And what I normally do here is just talk. And then if anybody's out there and you want to participate, hang on. I'm going to hit my, this is not good for live recording, is it? I can't even figure out how to mute. So I'm going to cough for a second. See, I'm out of practice going live. But that's kind of one of the adventures about going live. I see that I have 2 viewers. So 2 viewers, if you're watching and you want to participate, please do put any of your questions or comments right here in the comments and I'll watch that. I want to talk today about consciousness as it relates to leadership. So what I'm going to do is, this is the preview, the setup, and then I'm going to hit record, or I guess I already started recording, but I'm going to do a countdown so it's easier for me to edit this, and then this becomes the podcast. And again, you're welcome to share. The podcast is, while it's edited a little bit, it's nothing too fancy. I am pretty proud of it. However, I've had some really amazing guests over the past, it's 4 years. We're in season 4. So if you're looking for a podcast, that would be a really fun one. And you'd meet some cool people. And I'm going to do a countdown here so that I can start. And my conversation is going to be around conscious leadership. Okay? There you go. 3, 2, 1. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Circle Up and Get Real, where we talk about things that matter with people who matter. And today, I don't have a guest. I used to do this a lot more often than I have recently, where I just kind of go live and have a conversation with whoever happens to be listening. And I'm doing that today, but I warn you, I'm out of practice. I haven't done this for a long time. I've been doing a lot of facilitating of conversations this whole last year, really, doing some Think and Grow Rich study groups and facilitating some dialogues, which have been, I can't even explain how cool it is to have conversations with people when the topics and the subjects and the dialogue emerges instead of having agendas and knowing exactly what we're going to talk about. I love being in that space of what Chris and I are calling emergent conversations. Chris is my co-host for the Enlightened Leadership Lab, which happens on Mondays from 3 to 4:30 Central Time, where we talk about leadership in the way I want to talk about it today, where the topic and the conversation and the dialogue really does emerge, and it really needs then participants for that to happen. So today I see we have 7 people watching right now. Please feel free to put any comments, any questions you would like in the chat, in the comments. I will watch as we're going forward, and I'd love the opportunity to engage with you about the topic of conscious leadership. Now, this is not a new topic to me. I was kind of obsessed with a book called Becoming a Conscious Leader back in 2018, I think. And Bailey Stickney just came in. Yes, Bailey, we are going to talk about dog training and pet care. I would love that as one of our topics on the podcast. So, by the way, this is what it means when I'm going live. Bailey, yes, you're on my list. Please, let's connect after this. But today it's about consciousness. So back in 2000, I think it was 18, I was introduced to this book called Becoming a Conscious Leader. I spent the whole year studying that book. I mean, like studying it. I took notes, and it took me a whole year. Finally, at the end of, I think it was the end of 18 to 19. I'm pretty sure that's when it was. It wasn't 19 to 20. Although, time, it's crazy. But that book was really important to me in my own development about consciousness and leadership. And the author, Gina Hayden, has been on my podcast a couple of times. And so that whole concept is not new to me, but I'm going deeper with it than I have in the past. And I found a book, I can't even remember who told me about this book, but it's called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, A New Paradigm for Sustainable Success. And the more I dig into these concepts, the more obvious in some ways it seems that we would need to be awake and aware of what we're doing as leaders, but also the more connected I feel to the people who write about this. So in this book, I'm only on page 56, so I'm not even that far into it. But the whole concept of consciousness has occurred to be really important. It doesn't necessarily only mean that your eyes are open and you are aware of your surroundings, although that's an important part about being alive in the world, is having the ability to see that. But as it relates to leadership, it's being aware of your actions and your leading, the way you lead. If we are not conscious in our leadership, we're stuck in an old paradigm, or what they call in the book below the line thinking. And below the line thinking is victim, blame, a lot of things that you wouldn't do if you were more aware of the effects of your behavior. So in the book, I'll just read you a couple of things that I've underlined because I think it's really important. It says, why would we write another book on leadership? There are many books out there. And what they say right in the beginning of this book is because most of the current models of leadership aren't working. If you look at our country, let's just go there. We're so divided right now because we have so many people who want to be right. This is my observation. I'm not trying to make that be wrong or bad. I'm just observing. When people talk a lot, this podcast aside, because it's what we do on a podcast, they want to be right about things. And so they will just declare a fact from their perspective and hope that other people agree or diss the people who don't agree. And if you watch any kind of social media right now or any kind of really news shows or anything, you'll see a lot of that. You'll see a lot of declarations about statements that occur to be factual. I was talking this morning in another group that I'm facilitating about opinions that are disguised as facts, and sometimes we don't even recognize the distinction. When people say things like, everyone who drives a blue car is stupid, which is a really weird analogy, but something as benign as that, and then gathers a lot of opinions of people who agree, what they do is create sides. We take a side, we take a position against something else, and we start talking against people who drive blue cars, as an example. It doesn't make any sense that my opinion about the color of an automobile would be what everybody else should believe is true, but that's as silly as some of these arguments seem to me. And that's not very conscious, according to this book. He said, Jim Dethmer, Diana Chapman, and Kaylee Warner Klemp are the authors of the book. And they talk about how they've been working with leaders who have midlife crises, broken marriages, fractured families, hardened hearts, dreamless futures. That can happen to anybody. And in some cases, they say they have wild success. They have financial success. They can boast many quarters of beating earnings estimates, and they have the money to show for it, but they're struggling to find purpose, satisfaction, happiness, and balance. And I think that's what can happen, and that's what seems to be happening a lot when I look around the world. Again, I'm trying really hard to be observational and not judgmental. But they say here that if you look at the statistics in business, high turnover, low employee engagement, steep healthcare costs, and dysfunctional teams are some of the things we're observing. And if you're at all awake and conscious, that's probably not a good thing. That's not what you would choose if you had the opportunity. It says there are short-term effects that can be gotten by pushing and forcing and hustling and grinding, but over time that doesn't really create an organization that is long-term sustainable. And so this whole book is about recognizing the distinction between being conscious, a conscious leader, and successful. So you can be successful on paper and you can be unconscious. And you can also be successful on paper and be conscious. And they show the distinction here. And I just think that's really, really, really crucial and important. If you're above the line, you're leading consciously. If you're below it, you are not. And with the fear that seems to be rampant in the world these days, it would make sense that we would be reactive. We would be spending a lot of time reacting to things around us instead of actually thinking for ourselves and finding out for ourselves what really matters to us. And I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this right now, to start observing what's going on around you. Observe it as if you weren't attached to the eyes that are seeing it. See if you can do that. See if you can pull yourself out of the situation you're in. Imagine that you're in a hot air balloon that's tethered 10 feet above the ground and just look down on the situation around you. Observe yourself in that situation and see whether you get a different perspective than when you're only looking through your own eyes. Because if you can do that, if you have the ability, I know you have the ability. I'll just make that assumption. You have the ability. I'm just not sure that many of us believe we have the time it might take to do that. And then we start living into those kinds of lies like, I don't have time, or that doesn't matter, it's not important, or whatever the statements are that we're making about the way we see the world. If we can become observational instead of judgmental, even just for a short amount of time, I'm confident that we're going to start seeing things a little bit differently. We're going to start seeing from a different perspective. We're going to start being able, we're able. I really believe we're able. We're going to be conscious enough to say, wow, that never occurred to me that way before. It never occurred to me the way I'm seeing it now because I haven't taken the time to be observational. I've only been reactive. And I'm going to cut all of us some slack right here because we're all in a madhouse around us of a world that's in a lot of chaos. But it doesn't have to be that way if we exercise our right to think for ourselves. We each have that right. We have that opportunity to think for ourselves and not to take our own thoughts and then shove them down other people's throats. I mean, I guess we could. And maybe it's just because my desire is connection that I'm finding other ways to have conversations than to declare and shove and force things on other people. I'm much more interested and curious about connecting. So I want to learn what it is about people that has them be a certain way. Not to make them defensive, not to cause their defenses to come up, but to invite them into a dialogue. That's my desire. I could be the only one in the world who has that desire. But when I get really clear about why I'm here, my purpose, what lights me up, what creates what I would call my connection to my own destiny, it's to do that. It's to help other people who are curious and interested come together in a community where we can practice these things, practice having conversations like this, instead of making only declarations about how something's wrong or bad or needs to be different. I'm very convicted in that way. I mean, I really do believe that that is a possibility and that things will change for the better if we can learn how to connect by being more observational and less judgmental. This year, if we're honest, this year, 2024, is going to be a tough one for us in America because there will be so many opportunities, as this is an election year, for us to take sides and take a position and fight against something. And because we're so much there, at least the loudest voices that I've been observing are in one of those two camps. I will never stop believing that there are more of us in the middle who wish we had a voice and wish that there were someplace we could use that voice and practice those emergent conversations. So what I'm doing is setting up opportunities for people to do that. We have the Enlightened Leadership Lab on Mondays from 3 to 4:30 Central Time, where people can practice emergent conversations. We have Think and Grow Rich coming up, another study group. We have Chill Out, which is an event in person in Fargo, February 28th, 29th, and March 1st, where we can be with other people who are committed to the same things we're committed to, practicing consciousness, practicing conversations that bring us together rather than pull us apart. We have my Real Me Intensive course coming up March 10th is our next cohort. It's a 6-week course, 2 hours a week, where people can meet others who are interested in becoming more real, getting rid of their limiting beliefs so that they can be the most effective leaders, parents, community members, family members that they possibly can be. Those are all opportunities, and they're everywhere if you look for them. Opportunities for you to shed some of these old beliefs that aren't serving you anymore, maybe never were, and that we could start getting real with ourselves and finding our own truths and living into those in a way that prevents the what am I calling this? The fighting that happens, prevents the fighting that sets us up not to have to feel so defensive because somebody else feels offensive, but allows us to let our guards down a little bit, become more trusting of others, become more conscious, really. I want to read this book, The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, in a group. I really want to do that. If you're interested in learning more about that, please give me a comment here or get in touch with me. You can find me all over social media. Jodee Bach, pretty easy to find. 2 E's, Jodee K. Oh my goodness, I can't even say my name. Jodeebock, which you can see if you look here. A lot of opportunities to step into that, step into our own greatness, so that we, as the leaders we are, really can lead people authentically and truthfully and vulnerably, so that we can boost each other instead of cutting each other down. Fear will do that. Love won't. So if there's anything here you've heard that you'd like more information about, um, please forgive my rustiness in going live. I think you got an idea of what I wanted to talk about today. And if there's anything you've heard that you'd like to chat about offline, please get in touch with me. Bailey, you'll be on my podcast, and we'll talk about compassionate dog training and pet care. I would love that. That reminds me of something, Bailey, as I think about that. I watched the 3rd episode of Lessons in Chemistry, and I almost couldn't get through it, because that 3rd episode is from the dog's point of view. Oh, and my empathy is coming through. Ooh, I was very touched by that, and it was hard to watch for me. But anyway, all of that to say, I would love to have a conversation with you if you want to step into this world of getting real. Radical, energized, authentic, learning focused. Figure out with others what you're really here to do, and then do it. Because that is what the world needs more of, in my opinion. So I'd love to connect. As always, everybody, get real. Talk to you again. Bye.